Rescuers responding to an accident on a busy highway fear the worst when they encounter a small car wedged beneath the wheels of a tractor-trailer truck. To their amazement, the car's driver is alive and conscious, but is trapped in the twisted wreckage.
His axle is through the windshield. The second set of duals is sitting on the car. Okay? His duals on that side are resting on the car.
While uncertain of his injuries, the firefighters know they must free the trapped man quickly.
You're going to use your boom? I'm going to follow the boom with the wheel. Yeah, that'll hold.
Right now, our units arrived on location. We had a vehicle pinned under the trailer of a tractor trailer. Right now, we're working on getting the vehicle and the trailer stabilized so we can get the vehicle out from underneath the trailer to treat the patient.
A large wrecker has been summoned to lift the trailer from the rear, but the angle from which the wrecker can attach does not ensure that the maneuver will be stable, and the trapped motorist is dangerously close to the fully loaded trailer's axle. One slip and the man will be crushed to death. Paramedics attempt to get the driver's vital signs while doing what they can to treat his injuries. They know they must work quickly because soon they will have to retreat from under the trailer until the man can be freed. Meanwhile, rescuers attach a steel cable from a fire engine's winch to the rear of the car. Once the trailer is elevated and stabilized, the winch will be used to slowly remove the crushed auto. Firefighters use dozens of pieces of lumber to fashion temporary supports under the wheels of the trailer. A second team of firefighters stands by with the hose line in case any of the rescue activities should accidentally spark a fire. For their own safety, the paramedics must leave the driver alone and can only watch as work continues to stabilize the heavy trailer. They try to reassure him that he will be freed very soon, but everyone, including the driver, knows that until he is freed from the crushed car, the paramedics can do little more for him than they have already done. The team stabilizing the trailer works as quickly as possible. It seems to go slowly. They need to be certain that the now airborne trailer will not slip and fall on the driver. Finally, the rescue crew is confident that the trailer is firmly supported at the proper height, and the winch operator begins to extract the car.
The truck had to be raised up off the car, and then the car had to be removed from underneath the truck with the heavy-duty rescue trucks that we've got on location. On arrival, it was amazing that anybody was alive in this situation.
As soon as the car is clear of the trailer, the rescuers converge and begin the second phase of the extrication. They must now cut the crumpled wreckage from around the driver in order to free him from his car. Using the jaws of life and other cutting and prying tools, the firefighters first remove the driver's door, allowing the paramedics better access to the patient. The driver is protected from flying debris, while paramedics continue to treat the injuries they've identified. But until his legs are freed, no one is certain of exactly what they will find. After cutting through all of the posts supporting the car's roof, the firefighters remove it in one solid piece. Finally, the rescuers have clear access to the injured man. He is released from his still fastened safety belt and gently removed from the mangled car and placed onto a waiting stretcher. The rescuers are amazed that the man appears to have no serious injuries at all. However, they stabilize his head and neck and strap him to the stretcher in preparation for his trip to the hospital.
looking about an hour and 25 minutes, hour and 30 minutes to get the victim completely out of the vehicle, about an hour to get the car out from underneath the truck. The whole entire time we had good communication with the driver. The driver was the only occupant of the vehicle. He's stable on his way to the hospital.
Whenever a fire alarm is received reporting people trapped inside a burning home, and multiple calls are coming into the fire dispatch center, firefighters know they have serious work ahead of them. It takes only a few minutes head start for fire to race through a structure, consuming everything in its path. Those arriving first on the scene find heavy flames engulfing this single-story home, while thick smoke billows from every opening.
Chief, did you hear that? If there'd be anybody, they'd be in the back of the house, the neighbors said.
We were told nobody was in there.
Why would she say if they're there, they're in the back?
The fire chief in charge quickly learns that someone is inside the burning house and may be unable to get out on their own. Police officers who have also responded to the call work to determine which rooms inside the home may, in fact, be occupied. As firefighters stream water on the flames, a rescue team enters the home to search for any victims. Still other firefighters break windows so that the thick black smoke can find its way out, while the rescuers make their way in. The rescuers wear backpacks filled with breathing air, fed to them through protective face masks. Anxious relatives and neighbors, uncertain of the fate of those inside the home, fear for their safety from across the street. The ongoing battle between firefighters and the inferno is compounded by energized electrical wires that are dancing and popping like fireworks.
It's critically important that our search team covers every room in the house, since people, especially children, are known to hide from the fire.
Within only moments, the rescuers emerge from the still burning structure with an adult woman and 2 young children. The victims, while disoriented, seem to have suffered no serious injuries and are now safe from the deadly smoke and flames. They are given first aid treatment by emergency medical personnel who will transport the woman and children to an area hospital. The swift and decisive actions of those battling the flames saved the home from total destruction, while the heroic rescuers and medical personnel ensure the safety of the home's occupants, who otherwise may have perished in the blaze.
We had a well-coordinated effort from all the responding companies that resulted in the saving of 3 lives and stopped the fire.
Rescue calls that involve children make the hearts of those who respond beat a little faster as they think for just a moment of their own youngsters. Such is the case as firefighters are dispatched to a report of a small boy entrapped in a sewer pipe. When rescuers arrive, they find the boy swallowed up by a section of concrete pipe protruding vertically from the ground. Initial attempts to pull the boy straight up prove unsuccessful as he is tightly wedged inside the cylinder. A young emergency medical technician holds the boy's outstretched hand in an attempt to assess his injuries and provide him comfort, while other members of the rescue team wonder aloud just how they need to proceed.
We discussed it for a few minutes and decided that the best way would be remove some of the debris around the pipe and poke a hole in the bottom to take a look and see how bad he was stuck, and maybe also get a chance to assess his injuries.
That's probably how
the only kid, huh?
Okay.
Since the young boy is conscious, alert, and not complaining of any pain, rescuers talk with him and try to determine just how he had become wedged inside the concrete cylinder.
Buddy, Kenny, you may be able to drive the pry bars down.
Buddy, we're here for you, all right, buddy?
However, they know that extricating him quickly is critically important.
At first we thought it was real simple and we'd be able just to grab hold of him and lift him out. With the way his leg was twisted up alongside of him, we were actually pinching him into the pipe a little bit more by trying to lift him out. So we attempted that at first, but then decided that we would have to go another way. With injuries that were possible with him falling in that pipe, we knew that it was an emergency and had to get him out quickly.
The firefighters recognize that in order to free the boy, they need to get inside the pipe from below him. After securing the pipe with ropes to keep it from moving, they measure both inside and outside along the cylinder wall. Then, using a sledgehammer, the crew breaks through the concrete at a point safely below where the youngster is stuck. This gives them the vantage point they need to move ahead with their plan to carefully straighten the boy's tangled right leg and then lift him out of his tight quarters.
Bottom of the sneaker, which is right where you were banging. Right here, Kenny. Right here where his shoulder is.
Meanwhile, the young EMT and the boy continue to bond, which is also an important element of the rescuer's strategy. By diverting the boy's attention from his predicament and giving him assurance that everything would be all right, the extrication crew can move ahead quickly.
We were explaining to him what was going on, what we were going to do, how we were going to get him out. Told him who was here, his mom. There's a lot of people watching him. Then I just engaged in general conversation, how old he was, where he went to school, what he was doing, how he got stuck in the pipe.
Members of the rescue crew continually monitor the inside of the pipe with flashlights to ensure that the actions taking place below the trapped boy do not jeopardize him in any way. Once they have broken through the concrete and gained clear access to the boy's twisted leg, the rescuers carefully remove his shoes, untangle his leg, and gently lift him out of the sewer pipe.
There he is. You got it. Woo!
Once freed from the cylinder, the boy's injuries can be more thoroughly assessed. Amazingly, other than his twisted ankle, the youngster has suffered no broken bones or trauma, only minor scrapes and bruises. While certainly more than he bargained for, the boy's adventurous walk around the rim of the pipe has ended happily. A bad traffic intersection at night and two vehicles both trying to make it through at the same time lead to a terrifying crash that injures 3 people. Upon arrival, firefighters and paramedics find 2 young adults in a heavily damaged car.
I initially went to the car, saw that the one driver was serious, knew we were going to need to use the helicopter to transport him fast to the hospital. I also knew that my ambulance was coming for the other patient, and I had one more patient that I needed to take care of, so I called for an additional ambulance.
Our initial priority was to remove the patient that was most easily accessible, which was the passenger. Pretty much the door just opened on its own, and we had our EMS crews tend to that patient right away and remove her, thus making more room for us to extricate the driver.
The teenage girl, severely injured, is rushed from the scene to the local trauma center. A paramedic is now able to crawl into the crumpled vehicle to assess the driver's condition. He is alert and talkative, which benefits his rescuers. Paramedics treat the victim by placing a stiff cervical collar around his neck, stabilizing his head and upper body. This procedure minimizes the risk of damage to the spinal cord.
We knew that the extrication was probably going to be a little bit more extended extrication than normal due to the impact from the van on the driver's door. We knew that we had a golden hour that we had to work with.
One firefighter uses the jaws of life to cut away the mangled driver's door. As he does, another rescuer uses a specialized handsaw to cut the windshield glass from around its frame. Additional rescue units arrive to assist with the injuries and extrication as firefighters and paramedics work anxiously to stabilize the driver as the car is being cut from around him. The driver is protected from glass and other debris as it is cut away. Paramedics and other firefighters continue cutting away the sides and roof of the car. As they do, the state police helicopter arrives, ready to transport the victim to the trauma center once he is freed from the wreckage. Finally, the car's roof is lifted and folded back.
Once we removed the roof from the car, we did note that the patient was conscious. Our EMS crews immediately went to work on the patient inside the car while we removed the dash. The dash was pushed down on the gentleman's legs, and we needed to use also other equipment with the jaws of life to basically remove the car from the patient.
An oxygen mask is placed on the patient's face. While continuing to watch his head, neck, and back for injuries, paramedics get their first opportunity to examine his lower extremities.
Once we freed the car from the patient, we slid a backboard in. We had our EMS crews maintain inline stabilization of his head. We proceeded to slide a backboard behind him and basically lifted him straight out of the car onto the backboard. We laid the seat back and took him off the trunk of the car.
Firefighters and emergency medical services personnel then carry the injured driver to the waiting helicopter.
The paramedics on the ground took care of the patient until the helicopter landed, and we then transported the patient from the car to the helicopter. The state police have a paramedic that rides in the helicopter, which transported the patient to the hospital.
Due to the extended extrication, paramedics prioritize transport over on-scene treatment. Use of the medevac helicopter significantly reduces the travel time between the accident scene and the nearest trauma center. Firefighters are in the business of saving lives and property, and every call they answer poses unique challenges regarding that mission. Today, there are a growing number of specialized firefighting teams whose job it is to be prepared to rescue the rescuers. Upon arrival, the fire chief finds a heavy fire condition in this two-story home. Recognizing the workload ahead, he quickly calls for the local Firefighter Assistance Search, or FAST team, to respond. The specialized group of firefighters who make up the FAST team are responsible for monitoring the progress of those battling the flames or searching for victims. Should any of the frontline personnel find themselves in trouble, the FAST team immediately springs into action to assist their fellow rescuers to safety. This particular fire continues to spread rapidly, making its way up from the basement through the first and second floors of the home. While teams of firefighters are inside, battling the flames and searching for occupants, others are cutting holes in the roof to allow the smoke and gases to escape, creating a clearer path for those inside.
Fire on the second floor was getting more and more intense. We noticed this. We saw thick brown smoke starting to pour out of the structure, which was a little odd considering there was at least 2 or 3 hand lines in the structure itself. Upon noticing this, I instructed all of my team to get their masks on and get ready to go in service.
As the fire spreads, crews report that no victims have been found inside the home. The fire chief orders everyone to exit the building. However, before the crew on the roof could complete their assignment, the fast-moving fire engulfs the second story of the home and begins shooting out of every window, as well as through the holes they had cut in the roof. The firefighters are trapped on the roof of the now fully involved structure.
You got somebody on the roof!
We immediately went and assisted with moving ladders to get firefighters that were still stuck on the roof of the structure that were venting at the time. I assisted with firefighter Winterberg in moving some of the ladders to get some of those firefighters off the roof as quickly as possible.
The fire causes considerable damage to the home and its contents. But due to the quick thinking of the fire chief and the efforts of the FAST team, the firefighters who had become trapped on the roof as the flames approached them were rescued and suffered no injuries.
Being a firefighter, you want to get in there, you want to get inside, you want to put out the fire, you want to help out. But being on the FAST team, you have to kind of sit outside and watch the fire develop. We stood there, we watched the fire for nearly half an hour, and after that, the second floor took off, and we were just as important as anybody else, if not more important, because we were fresh, we were ready to go, we were ready to help those people who've been working so hard for the past half an hour.
The historic three-story building, situated on Main Street of a college town, houses a popular restaurant as well as a number of student apartments. When fire strikes one night, residents who are at home are quickly and safely evacuated, along with patrons inside the local eatery. One resident, who was away at the time of the fire, has left her pet cat in the apartment alone. The search team confirms that all of the occupants are safely out of the building. But the fire continues to spread, consuming personal belongings as it races through the upper floors and now burns through the roof. Residents and patrons who have gathered across the street notice something in a third-floor window and begin yelling to firefighters. The missing cat has managed to make it to the windowsill, but is trapped. A team of firefighters immediately hoists a ladder to the third-floor window where the cat sits motionless against the smoky backdrop. One firefighter then ascends the ladder to rescue the animal from the fire. Spectators watch in awe as the rescuer makes his way to the waiting victim. The petrified animal appears not at all that anxious to leave its perch with the firefighter and claws the windowsill as the rescuer carefully picks it up. Holding the injured animal in one arm, the firefighter descends the ladder as spectators and comrades alike look on. Once safely on the ground, the rescuer turns the feline over to be treated for smoke inhalation, burns, and shock. The frightened feline is treated by emergency medical personnel who are on the scene. When neighbors notify the rescuers that the cat's owner is indeed not at home, the injured pet is transported to the local animal hospital, where it recovers fully from the terrifying experience. Meanwhile, the firefighters stop the fire from spreading and save the historic building, although all the apartments suffer damage. Several of the firefighters also require minor medical attention for heat exhaustion as a result of battling the stubborn blaze. A cold spring day brings a near-death experience to a young plumber working in the family business. While digging a trench in a residential neighborhood, the dirt walls collapse on top of him. His father, working just a few feet away, hears the terrible sound.
I glanced away for a second, and I heard this sickening thud, and I knew what it was, and I glanced back, and the whole trench had come down on top of him. I jumped in and started digging with my hands. The dirt was so thick and heavy, I couldn't dig fast enough with my hands, so I grabbed the shovel and started digging with the shovel.
Firefighters arrive and take over the digging process. They immediately provide the victim with oxygen to assist his breathing.
I came up to the hole, I took a look in the hole to see where Joey was. And right away my heart went out to him. He's trapped in a hole, he's buried up to his neck. There's literally hundreds of people standing there staring at him. He's completely helpless, there's nothing he can do. He's totally in our hands.
The firefighters must dig the victim out without allowing more dirt to cave in. To hold back the dirt, rescuers build temporary walls or shoring on the sides of the trench, but this takes time. Without these walls, it is impossible to dig any deeper and not trigger another collapse. The rescuers use shovels, picks, and even their hands, digging carefully around the victim in order to pull him out.
It's what you have to do. You have to make sure that Joey's safe. You have to make sure that the firefighters, the rescuers who are inside the hole are safe. Shoring is what does the trick.
The massive amount of dirt impairs the victim's breathing. The efforts of the rescuers are exhaustive, but they know that the digging cannot stop for even a moment, so they work in shifts. The strain on victim and rescuer is incredible.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure that was put on Joey. As we dug him out, we tried to pull him out. Each time we got lower and lower. But the pressure of the dirt was so tremendous that he couldn't budge.
As I watched him dig him out, I was afraid he was being crushed by the weight. I was also concerned that he was getting cold, the hypothermia would set in. I thought it was taking a long time. I wanted to get back in the ditch.
It is a long, slow process, But everyone continues working. Even the young man, now freed from the waist up, helps with the digging. But the heavy, wet soil still holds him fast. Bucket by bucket, the rescuers have moved thousands of pounds of earth. It has taken several hours and is almost over.
We had to dig all the way down to his ankle before we finally were able to get him out.
At last, the young plumber is freed from his earthen tomb. Incredibly, after being buried alive for hours, he attempts to walk out of the trench on his own, appearing to be uninjured. However, as a precaution, the rescuers place him on a backboard so that the paramedics can more thoroughly examine him before they transport him to the hospital. The dedicated efforts of everyone involved have really paid off as the young man survives his ordeal with just minor injuries and soon resumes his work in the family business.
The experience has definitely changed my life in the sense that everything is just, to me, it means just so much more now. I look on every day as a gift.
Late one rainy night, a speeding car and wet roads make for a deadly combination as the driver loses control and slides broadside into a steel trolley pole. The impact cuts the car in half and kills 3 passengers. The 4th passenger is trapped in the rear half of the car. He is alive, but severely injured, and to get him out is a daunting task for the members of Rescue 1.
When we arrived, the members of Engine 61, Engine 64, and Battalion 2 had basically stabilized the back end of the car, did a nice job. They got in the jaws of life out. They did a nice job stabilizing the vehicle.
Trying to stabilize only half a car that is upside down, the rescuers wedge large pieces of wood at strategic places so that they can begin to cut the victim out. While cutting through the wreckage with the jaws of life, rescuers see a portion of the victim's leg extending through the metal bottom of the car. Paramedics who are also on scene do what little they can in an effort to keep the patient stable. They talk to the victim and advise him to keep as still as possible for 2 reasons. The first is so he does no further injury to himself, and the second is because the remnant of the car is so unstable, any unwarranted movement could cause it to topple over.
Because the vehicle had almost flipped over, it was very unstable. It was only half a car to begin with. It was very unstable. And members literally had to support the car with their hands while they established some cribbing, get some stabilization in place. We got our appropriate cutters out, and along with Battalion 2's cutters, we had 2 or 3 members from Rescue 1 and a couple members of the on-scene companies start to do the cutting of the sheet metal from around the victim's ankle and leg. Our big concern was our stability of the vehicle, to be sure that the patient's injuries were not increased, and to be sure that we had a safe area for our members to work in.
Rescuers work feverishly to cut the mangled car from around the victim. A second Jaws of Life is brought into service. The rescue efforts are complicated by the location of the car's gas tank.
The gas tank was 4 or 5 feet in the air, in the overturned position. The gas tank was directly over the victim that we were extricating, as a matter of fact. We had a hose line stretched in the anticipation that our cutting might make a spark. We had no gasoline on the ground at that point, but we kept a constant eye out for it.
Finally, after nearly 15 minutes, the young man is freed from the wreckage. Paramedics had successfully started an intravenous line on their patient while he was still trapped. They then cut away his clothes to make a quick survey for additional injuries and prepare him for transport. He is carefully placed on a backboard with a stiff protective collar around his neck to prevent further injury. He is taken to the hospital in critical condition.
In the aftermath of a situation like that, what a rescue company does is that we kind of group the guys together, we look at what we had, we evaluate it, we look at what we did, and we anticipate what we might do better the next time. We essentially take some time to walk all around the scene, see what we can learn about the vehicle, see what we can learn about the situation, see what we can learn, did we stabilize it correctly,
And being in a rescue company is a learning position. You're always learning.
Responding to an apartment building fire with his ladder truck, veteran Fire Chief John Kirchner expects to join his neighboring town to extinguish the blaze. As other fire units arrive on scene, the ladder truck is placed on the fire side of the building. Chief Kirchner's firefighters are quickly recruited to take another hose line inside the building to back up the team already fighting the fire. Bystanders assist the volunteers in pulling hose lines and setting up ladders. At the same time, the chief officers confer on a strategy to prevent the fire from spreading any further. Firefighters work their way up to the third floor using a narrow stairwell in an effort to douse the intense flames.
After the crews were inside, which they were still unknown that anybody was in the building, at the windows on the third floor in the front, on the top floor, there was a female yelling that they were trapped up there.
Chief Kirchner and his driver quickly reposition the ladder truck to the front of the building and raise the ladder. The fire chief realizes that he is the only one available to rescue the trapped family from the fast-moving fire, as the rest of the firefighters have their hands full inside the burning building. Onlookers watch anxiously as the mother and her 3 children wait for their rescuer. The chief reaches the terrified family at the top floor window. He explains to the mother how he will rescue each of them, one by one. The desperate mother hands her first child, a little girl, to Chief Kirchner. Cradling the frightened child tightly in his arms, he carefully turns to work his way down the steep incline of the ladder.
There was no hesitation. I didn't even get a chance to put my safety belt on, and basically just going up and bringing the first one down, and it seemed like just some bystanders even came to grab them from me at the bottom of the ladder so I could go back up and get the others.
The mother hands the fire chief her young son, who clings to the brave firefighter. As the youngster turns and looks down the ladder, the fear on his face is unmistakable. Meanwhile, emergency medical services personnel quickly evaluate the little girl and begin to treat her for minor smoke inhalation by providing her with oxygen. On Chief Kirchner's third trip to the window, the mother passes her baby to him. Gently, the chief cuddles the baby to ease the toddler's fear, then makes his way down the ladder. The chief once again hands off the child to the helpful bystander, knowing full well that he has one more trip to make up the ladder. As he does, more firefighters arrive to assist in the effort. Dark smoke shortly turns a lighter shade as the firefighters inside make their way to the burning apartment and flow water onto the fire. Chief Kirchner reaches the window ledge one last time, but the mother is hesitant to climb out the window. The chief assures her that her children are now safe and that it is her turn to escape. Slowly, she climbs over the windowsill and onto the aerial ladder. Chief Kirchner leads her down the ladder backwards, guiding her every step. She is barefoot, and a misstep could be disastrous. Finally, they reach the bottom of the ladder, where a police officer assists with her last few steps. The young mother is moments away from being reunited with her 3 children. At last, the family of 4 is safe on the ground.
Mostly on training, I like to take a climb when we have the ladder up, but on actual incidents, I'm usually standing there with the radio directing. And this was like one of the first ones where we had an actual rescue that we physically performed with our ladder truck, and it was me doing it, and it was definitely different.
What could have been tragedy ends happily and safely for all concerned. Fire rescue personnel are equipped with state-of-the-art tools to assist them in almost any emergency. Occasionally, though, a unique situation forces them to rely on simpler methods. A young boy playing on the sidewalk fails to see a hole that has been dug for a fence post. In a flash, one of his legs slides down into the hole, becoming wedged deep in the dirt.
Well, the initial response we received from our dispatch was a child with his foot stuck in some type of a hole. So our dispatch center dispatched an engine company, a heavy rescue, an ambulance, and myself. And what I found was, I thought it might be an easy job. I seen a child, probably 4 or 5 years old, with his left leg stuck in appeared to be a post hole.
Rescuers immediately set about digging out the dirt that surrounds the little boy's leg. Similar to a trench or earth collapse, the loose dirt in the hole creates a suction effect, tightly holding his little leg. Using a long iron bar, one firefighter loosens the dirt around the child's leg as another scoops the dirt away by hand.
There was probably a fence post there at one time. The hole was still there, and the concrete that the post sits in was still there. I think to remove the fence posts, they probably busted up the concrete to lift the pole out, and that essentially left all the concrete in the hole. When his foot went down that hole, it got wedged under that concrete. So we weren't dealing with just one massive piece of concrete. Each time he maneuvered, it even put him in tighter.
The child is covered with a cool towel to protect him from flying dirt or debris. With the limited space in the hole, rescue workers have to be extremely careful in using their tools to loosen the dirt to prevent further injury to the child. A firefighter asked the crowd observing the incident if anyone has a small garden trowel.
Does anybody have a small baby shovel, like a sand shovel or a trowel? Do you have a trowel?
As we got into the operation, we found out that some of our larger tools carried on our equipment was unusable. So what we had to do was go to small gardening tools to get down in between the child's knee and his ankle. We did locate a trowel in our piece of apparatus. One of our rescue operators got down there with his arm, could get down and dig out some of the concrete, but he was still having problems. As he was digging out, more dirt was starting to fill in.
Even a large slotted cooking spoon is used to dig out the dirt.
One of our rescue guys came up with the idea that if we could get a soup spoon, a long handle type, we might be able to get in and make some more movement on the dirt. So one of the neighbors went to the house, got us a long handled soup spoon, which gave it to our rescue guys who got down in there and made considerable improvement on the digging and moving of dirt and concrete.
Meanwhile, EMS personnel do their best to comfort and console the child as his concerned mother looks on. One EMS worker provides the child with sips of cold water to help his physical condition. Rescuers continue working diligently to release the boy's trapped leg, but the dirt and concrete keep a tenacious hold on the child's foot. Using the tools from the rescue truck, the garden tools provided by the neighbors, and even a hammer and screwdriver, the men continue to gently but determinedly dig deeper.
We were trying to bust up in as little pieces as possible, because what we could bust up, we could actually reach in with our hand and pull out. Not much bigger than just a small pile of rocks. So we're just taking little bits at a time, and we were getting a handful here and a handful there, and just trying to see something. And it almost seems at times that we possibly could have even got him wedged in tighter, because we'd move one piece of rock and then another one fall into its place. Dirt would slide in and actually would wedge him tighter.
We finally got this child's leg out, and needless to say, everybody concerned was very happy. The mother was extremely joyous. The kid was relieved. The ambulance people on scene immediately took care of his leg. We put some bandages on it, put some ice on it, and he was transported to the hospital for further observation. But the injuries, when we pulled them out, appeared just to be contusions of the ankle, and I think it was a job well done. Lengthy at times because of the leg angle and what we had to go through, but it was a job well done by all concerned. They really were patting us on the back and thanking us, Spanish and English, and they were just consumed by our effort, and I think we thank them for all the help they gave us, because certainly without their help, assisted us in a language problem, for bringing us a soup spoon, for keeping the surrounding area under control from their end of it versus our end. It turned out real well, and they were happy with the job we'd done.
Rescuers are summoned to a downtown office building when a window washer's rigging snags and leaves him dangling high above the busy street. He's unable to raise or lower himself at all and hangs in midair. 2 firefighters and a paramedic ascend in the bucket of a tower ladder truck, while other rescuers make their way to the roof of the building. The fully extended ladder allows the rescuers to get within a few feet of the man, but will require them to work from below him. The window washer is conscious and does not appear to be injured, but that could change dramatically at any moment should his ropes and rigging come undone.
He had a mobile type scaffolding unit, anchoring unit, for him to go over the edge, and apparently it broke free from its anchor and lost some of its counterweights, and it proceeded to go up against the parapet wall and then flip over the parapet wall.
When the rescuers in the bucket reach the window washer, he explains how his ropes and pulleys are attached to the building. A firefighter in the bucket relays this information to the team on the roof.
We communicated through radio and just basically shouting over the edge of the roof to the guys in the tower on what we wanted them to do to secure this guy.
The plan is to substitute the rescuer's rope and pulley for the man's broken one, then guide him into the bucket. Timing of the exchange is critical. To reach the window washer, one firefighter leaves the safety of the bucket.
What I did was we opened up the door to the bucket, and when I came out, I was still attached to the bucket, but I had to unattach myself and come under the bar and then attach the line again, you know, because it didn't have enough room for me to do that all while still being attached to the bucket. I was leaning, basically holding on by the bar and my feet on the platform. I tried to make sure to keep both my feet on the platform because I didn't want to step on the ledge.
Before the rescue personnel can retrieve the suspended worker, two major obstacles must be overcome. First, the man has to be secured so that when he steps away from the ledge, he will not fall to the street below. Second, firefighters must secure his failed rigging so that it does not fall to the street, possibly injuring or killing someone below. The critical moment for the rescuers has arrived. While the crew on the roof lowers a safety line, the lead firefighter carefully attaches the rescue rope to the man's safety harness, then unhooks the window washer's rope and seat.
I had a good, safe grip on the bucket, and I felt confident that I could take him. If something were to happen, I could have, you know, held on to him with a good grip. He had a nice harness on, so the lifeline was attached to him. We basically just evaluated the situation, and we came to the conclusion that it would be best for me just to reach over and let him grab on my shoulder, and he basically just rode me down. I mean, I lifted up, and he put his weight on me and just came down, and it was kind of smooth. It was a lot smoother than we expected.
Once the window washer is safely inside, a paramedic checks his vital signs, while a firefighter secures his still dangling rigging to the building. Then, the tower ladder is lowered back down to street level.
We were still worried, you know, because we still had all that weight on the bucket, and, you know, you had to worry about getting it down. Just because you get them off the ledge doesn't mean that it's over. You still have to, you know, you still have all that weight sitting on that bucket at such a high angle and at a high elevation. You know, it's like you're still worried about just getting down. As soon as I hit the ground, that's when I feel relieved.
What we're going to need to do, guys, everybody needs to take a set of vital signs. I'm sure they do us, all right? Take a set of vital signs. Make sure you're okay. You're a BLS here. I'm sorry. Yeah.
The window washer is extremely fortunate to have suffered no injuries. He is escorted to a waiting ambulance by emergency medical services personnel for an evaluation. Other than a few scrapes and bruises, he is unhurt and lucky. When her natural instincts get a dog stuck in a hole, the local fire department is called to the rescue.
I came home from work on Thursday, and Peter said that Dory had ran away and we couldn't find her. And Peter went out today to this hole that a groundhog had lived in, and the dog had been chasing him over the past couple months, and Peter found her in the hole. And she had been there for 3 days. So we tried to get her out. We were unsuccessful, and so then we called the Ellesmere Fire Department to come and help us.
Once on scene, firefighters quickly assess that Dory is stuck in a combination of concrete debris and a groundhog hole.
When we first got out of the truck, one of the families said she's stuck in a groundhog hole. I said, well, that's no problem. We'll just get some shovels and dig her out. You know, that can't be a big deal. And when we walked back there and I saw how deep she was, I still didn't realize the severity of the situation until we got in the hole and you could feel what she was stuck in.
The jaws of life, normally used on extended and complicated motor vehicle entrapments and extrications, are brought into service in an effort to pry open a space between the earth and the concrete. Wooden wedges and cribbing are brought in to set up a firmer base for the jaws. But this simple plan proves far more difficult.
Probably the most frustrating part was here we are with probably all the modern equipment that you could use in a rescue situation. And you're trying to work as best you can, and every step along the way it seemed like you run into another obstacle. First it was the concrete, then it was the hearse tool not being able to fit in there because of the condition and the ground level. Then it was the rain and the mud and the constant slipping. The more it took, the more frustrated you got, and the more concerned you got for Dory.
The rescuers are also concerned with Dory's emotional welfare and pet her gently in an effort to calm her. The rain creates more mud, causing the jaws of life to slip off several times. The firefighters have now been working for nearly an hour to free Dory. But they keep trying.
And I said, we got to keep pressure on it and try to keep raising it, and I'll try to move her at the same time. And it just seemed like it all clicked all at once. The ground moved, it lifted the concrete up. I got my hands around her mouth and her head, and at the same time they raised, I squeezed her out, if that's a word, and took her out of the hole.
At last, the canine is freed and appears to be fine. After 3 days in a hole, it takes Dory a few minutes to reacclimate herself to her own backyard.
The dog's great, so we're very happy, and she just looks like she's a little dehydrated, but she's doing good.
And ever careful to prevent a reoccurrence, our rescuer places a large cement cinder block in the opening of the culvert, hopefully to keep the groundhog in and Dory, or one of her friends, out.
If someone asked me whether we'd put $750,000 worth of equipment on the road for a dog in a hole again, I would say, yeah, we would. The feeling that you get is probably one of the most undescribable in this world. It's what we do. That's who we are, and that's what we do.